Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are set to lead the Clippers into another season. Could it be the title-winning season? What is it going to take for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard statistically and overall to get the Clippers over the hump? Coming up on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips here on Locked On Clippers. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. My name is Darian Vaziri, your host. 18 years, a Clipper fan, a diehard. Also host my own YouTube channel and podcast where I go live after most Clipper and Laker home games. All things LA sports and NBA history if you want to learn about that. And of course, Clipper vlogs when I attend games. But for today's episode, I am going to be talking about our stars. I'm going to start a series where in these upcoming episodes I talk about 2 or 3 players in depth, what I expect from them statistically, and what the Clippers are going to need out of them to win the championship. Not just get to the finals, not get to the conference finals, win the whole thing. So that means regular season expectations, both statistically and performance-wise, and then in the playoffs, we can kind of tease or go over what we kind of expect. But obviously, the playoffs are so long away. Nobody knows what's going to happen until then. But Kawhi Leonard, our main man, is going to be where we start. I'm going to also be giving out grades. How good has Kawhi Leonard been relative to his expectations that we placed for him as fans since he has arrived here in Los Angeles? I'm going to be giving my grade. And I think you guys are going to kill me for it, but we're going to see how it goes. I'm not going to pull back any punches of what I think. But Kawhi Leonard, so let's talk about this upcoming season, right? We've already talked about, is he going to be ready for opening night? That's just something we don't know right now. He has not been cleared for 5-on-5 according to the press or anything like that. So it's safe to assume that we just don't know. He could not be ready for opening night. He could be. But as I said, we're going to be the optimistic Clipper fans here, as we so often are in Clipper Nation, and just say he's going to start the season. So I think to start the season, he's going to be on a minutes restriction. It would kind of be a little shocking if he was not coming off an ACL tear. I say he's going to play under 30 minutes to start the season. I think very similarly to how we played, or how the Clippers played Paul George his first season with the Clippers when he was struggling with the constant shoulder surgery that he just came off of. I'd say right around that 28 to 29 minute mark will be where Kawhi starts. And I think that his stats will take a little bit of a dip from his production we saw in the first 2 years of the Clippers. So just so you guys know what that is, let me read the stats off for you now. In 2019-20, his first year with the Clippers, he played 32.4 minutes. He averaged 27.1 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, and 5 assists if you round up. 4.9 was the exact number, and 1.8 steals. So really 27, 7, 5, and 2 on 47% shooting and 38% from 3. I mean, that's a fantastic season. He was awesome in the regular season. He played 57 games out of, I believe, 72 the Clippers played that year in the shortened season. Yeah, 72. So he only missed 15 games. So that was a really solid season for Kawhi in terms of health. And then the 2020 health and production in terms of the regular season. And then in 2020-21, the first year with Ty Lue, he played 5 less games. So 52 out of 72. Missed 20 games. Averaged more minutes, though. 34.1, which was actually a career high for him. So don't expect him to surpass that this season. He shot 51%, which was a career high since he's become an all-star. 40% from 3, if you round up. It was 39.8. And then averaged 25 points, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. The 5 assists were a career high, 1.6 steals. So Kawhi had a great season in 2021 as well. Even though his points per game dropped by 2, it's because he shot 2 less shots. He shot 17.5 shots in 2021, 20 shots in 2020, so it's normal that his points per game dropped by 2, but his rebounds were around the same, and his assists went up, and his efficiency went up. 51% shooting the ball in 2021, compared to 2020 where he shot 47% and 40% from three as opposed to 38. So going up in the efficiency category, nearly 50-40-90. He shot 88.5% from the foul line. So he was very close to shooting 50-40-90, and of course, playing very solid defense as well. Then we obviously get to the ACL tear. He doesn't play the whole year. So here are my statistical expectations before we start getting into specifics about Kawhi's game and what I really expect from him as the star and franchise player of our team, because he really is that guy. All the title hopes really rest on Kawhi's shoulders, and there's really no way of sugarcoating it, because he's to me, every championship contending team has to start with your best player. Can that guy be the best player on a championship team without extremely specific personnel? That means that if your guy is not a great defender, you're going to need a bunch of great defenders around him to overcome that. So that's why I prefer my best player being somebody who's not either a liability on the defensive end or needs a whole lot of help on that end. And Kawhi Leonard, your Kobe Bryants, your Michael Jordans, your Dwayne Wades, LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Tim Duncan, these guys, Hakeem, they don't need that. They're already good defenders. And in Kawhi Leonard's case, one of the better perimeter defenders of his generation in his prime, coming from a basketball historian in his prime, he's in the conversation with almost anyone in terms of perimeter defending all time. He became such a great offensive player, you didn't really see him continue with that check the best player the whole game kind of assignment. But Kawhi Leonard, being the defensive player that he is, the Clippers don't need to throw out a bunch of insane defensive personnel around him. He is a great defensive player himself, and I think that's actually the biggest question mark going into this season is how good will his defense still be? Will he lose anything laterally? You don't expect him to guard anybody significant until maybe crunch time in games, but I wouldn't even expect him to guard the best players in crunch time to start the season as well. I'd say the first 20 to 30 games, he'll probably be on this minutes restriction. But here's my projected stat line for Kawhi. And mind you, Clipper Nation, do not get alarmed if it's lower than what you think, because it will probably be lower than what you think. And secondly, it's not a big deal if Kawhi Leonard's stats for the season aren't that great compared to his regular self, because all that matters is what are his stats towards the end of the season if he's healthy going into the playoffs. That's all that matters, is what is your form going into the playoffs. And that, as you can see with the Boston Celtics last year, they started out 15-18 or 16-19, and in the second half of this, or 18-21, I believe. I know it was 15-18, but I think it got up to 18-21, and they turned it around and went to the championship because of their second half of the season. So here's my projected stat line for Kawhi. 31.3 minutes per game overall. So that would be his least amount of minutes in any season with the Clippers. As I said, 32.4 in 2020, 34.1 in 2021, 31.3, my projected number for him, would be his lowest minutes in a season, not counting the 2018 season where he really didn't play. That would be his lowest minutes since the 2014 season in which he won Finals MVP. So I've got him around there. 31.3 minutes per game, 23.2 points per game, 6.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists, 45% from the field, and 36% from deep on 17.2 shots a game. So let's just look at those stats relative to his normal numbers. 23.2 points per game. I know that sounds a little bit low for Kawhi. It's his least amount of points average since the 2016 season, which was his first All-Star appearance. He averaged 21 that year, so it would be more than that. Just his least after that, where he, to me, started his prime in the 2016-17 season. And obviously, I'm not counting the 2018 season where he had the quad injury and was out the whole year, basically. But I think that's a safe number for Kawhi, around 23 points per game. 6 rebounds, that's about standard. A little bit less than 2021 where he averaged 6.5, but that's because I think he's going to be playing a little bit less minutes. And then the efficiency, I think that's going to be a little bit of a drop just because it's going to take him a while to get his legs under him, get back into his superstar form. So I got him shooting 45% from the field, which, yes, is a good amount less than 2021 and less than 2020. Only 2 percentage points less than 2020, though. It would be his most inefficient season of his career, technically, but I don't think it's anything to trip off of. And then 36% from deep. is my prediction, which would be his lowest since the 2015 season. But again, efficiency, I wouldn't trip on it too much. 85% from the line was my projection for him, and still giving you 4 assists a game, which, he did average a career-high 5.2 assists in 2021, but 4.3 assists would actually be his third highest assist season in his career after the first 2 seasons he played for the Clippers. So I think those are going to be his numbers, just a projection, around 17 shots a game, which is only 0.3 less than 2021. So what is my grade for Kawhi Leonard's tenure with the Clippers? I'd love to tell you now, but I think it's going to be even better to tell you when we come back, and we'll also be getting into my projected stat line for Paul George. You're hanging out with some friends and putting back a few drinks. A few becomes a few too many. As the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay. It's no big deal. What are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk. The results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel while under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's life forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Okay, I figured I would tell you guys what my grade is for Kawhi as a Clipper so far, but I think it's better to just keep you guys till the end of the episode for that. So let's go right into Paul George and his expectations for the upcoming season. So PG has obviously in this last year, I think, gotten closer to Clipper fans in ways in terms of relative to Kawhi, in terms of the fact that you look at the first 3 years with the team, right? Kawhi Leonard was healthier that first year, so Clipper fans got to probably see him more live. I know I went to 2 games that season. I was still in college, and Kawhi played in both of them, and Paul played in neither of them. This was in January of 2020. And then obviously we didn't get a playoffs to watch the Clippers play in front of us in LA at Staples Center. So I think those are the moments that really bring the fan base and the players together, because I know it sounds corny and stuff, but as a Clipper fan, you get this opportunity with the affordability of the tickets to have this kind of relationship with the players in the way that you're just there supporting them consistently. It's not like, oh my God. Well, obviously this is true for some people, but for most Clipper fans I know, they go to games pretty regularly because they can. It's not like the Laker games where it's like, man, I got a chance to see LeBron and he dunked it and it was so cool, I'll never forget it. No, it's more like, Paul waved at me at the game because I go so much that I get a chance to do these things. I'll give a personal anecdote right here. I mean, when I was going to games back in the day in 2012, I remember when a certain Reggie Evans would get rebounds, people used to chant, Reggie, Reggie. That was awesome. And I figured after Reggie Jackson's performance in Game 6 against the Mavs in 2021, I said, you know what? We got to bring back the Reggie chants. So when there was cardboard cutouts, so mind you, the first season with Ty Lue, Paul George and Kawhi were great, but we didn't really get to bond with them as fans in person. We didn't get to be there to see them pump the crowd up. And those are the moments that Patrick Beverley, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, we got to bond with them as fans. We got to see even the sixth-man bench mob of Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. They really endeared themselves to the fans and had those experiences. Lou Williams, game winner against Brooklyn. Montrez used to swing his fist and pump up the crowd, and that stuff gets everybody engaged, and that's what's awesome, especially in LA where the fans can be a little lax. But Reggie Jackson was at the line, and we were still 50% cardboard cutouts at the stadium, and I started busting out the Reggie chants. Nobody followed on the first free throw, and then everyone started doing it on the second one, and by the end of the game, we were chanting his name, and it stuck in that playoff run, and now we do it, and it's a whole promoted thing. So I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm the one that started it, but I think I was. because I have a tweet to prove it, but that's not the point. The point is we did not have the opportunity to really bond. We have had more of an opportunity in this past season, the first full season with fans, to bond with Paul George a little more than Kawhi Leonard. I know it sounds corny to say bond because we're not actually knowing the guys, but like Paul George walked right by me when I was filming a vlog. You know, we were there for his return game. I just feel like I've got to see him more. And obviously he pumps up the crowd and is more of an interacting with the fans kind of guy than Kawhi, who's more introverted. So I really think I kind of personally like Paul George more. Not his game, but I've grown to like Paul George more. And I think that relative to expectations, considering Paul George is the one that led us over the line of breaking the second round curse, I'd say his tenure with the Clippers has been a little bit better relative to expectation than Kawhi Leonard. Let me know what you think of that. Who's had the better tenure as a Clipper so far? Kawhi Leonard or Paul George? That is today's question. I probably should have brought it up in the beginning, but that's today's question. Who has had a better tenure relative to their expectation, not their production? Paul George or Kawhi Leonard so far with the Clippers? So let's get into Paul George. Paul, we're not even going to talk about the first season, the bubble season. He was not himself. He was not 100%, going through some mental things. I'm just going to read the stat lines very quick. But 48 games played, so he missed 24 games. He averaged less than 30 minutes for the first time in his career since since the 2012 season. And we're not counting, same way we're not counting for Kawhi the 2018 season, we're not going to count the 2015 season where Paul came back from the leg break. So, because he only played 6 games that season. So in 2020, he averaged 21.5 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 44% shooting and 41 from 3. So pretty good, pretty decent splits. But 2021, his first real season with the Clippers, or should I say full season without too many injuries, with Ty Lue coaching him, he missed 18 games, but he averaged 23.3 points per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game, which was a career high, and then 47% from the field and 41% from 3. Really good splits. He played 34 minutes a game, so that was awesome. And then last season, which is the most recent one, obviously, 31 games played, so he missed 51 games. He averaged 34.7 minutes a game, which was his highest with the Clippers. Expect that number to drop a bit. He shot 20.5 shots, which was his most in any season besides the 2019 season with Oklahoma City. But that was obviously going to happen because we were missing Kawhi Leonard and had so many injuries. We wanted him to take that many shots. He shot 42%, which was his most inefficient season in terms of field goal percentage, not true shooting percentage, which is totally different. That accounts for threes being tougher than twos. But it's his lowest field goal percentage season since the 2016 season. So he shot 42%, and then 35% from 3. That was kind of weird, seeing Paul George's 3-point percentage dip off like that. That was his worst season shooting the 3 ball since, his rookie season. So something you definitely want to see go up, and I'm confident that it will. I think part of it, too, is just Paul George was fatigued a little bit when he was playing last season because he had to do so much. I think that it's going to be a little bit better. So this is my statistical projection. And by the way, 24.3 points per game last season, 7 rebounds, and 5.7 assists. That was a career high. So 24 and 2.2 steals a game. So really impressive in that department. That ties a career high. So 24.3 points per game, 7 boards, 6 assists, and 2 steals. I mean, really solid lines from Paul George. But this is my projected stat line for him this season. 33.5 minutes per game, so that would be our leading minute getter, and that's 2 minutes higher than Kawhi. I've seen some people say that we don't need them to play over 30 minutes, but I just want to let you guys know the relative minutes leader last season was Pascal Siakam at 38, Fred VanVleet right behind him at 38. That's partially because the Raptors' starting lineup was so drastically better than their bench, but Jason Tatum's playing around 35, 36, so I got Paul George playing 33. That's less than last season, and less than the 2021 season as well by 0.2 percentage points. So I got him at 33. I think Paul George is going to have to be our best player in the regular season just because we don't know how exactly Kawhi is going to look, and we know that Paul George is going to be ready for opening night. We've seen those Rico Hines videos that have been recently surfacing about how great he's looking in open runs, and Paul George, I think, is going to be ready to go. 33.5 minutes per game, 17.8 field goals attempted per game is my prediction, so around 18. That would be less than last season, and 0.2 more than 2021. And the reason why I'm giving him that is just because Kawhi Leonard will not be as heavily involved, in my opinion, by a tad. Remember, these are season averages. They're going to fluctuate throughout the season based on injuries, based on who's available, all that. Field goal percentage, I got him at 46%. I think that's a decent number, 4% higher than last season. I think is because he's going to get easier looks with Kawhi and the amount of talent we have out there with him, or the amount of talent the Clippers have out there with him. And then slightly lower than 2021 where he shot 47%. And I'm giving him some good faith here. I think his three-point percentage is going to rise again. I'm going 39% from three, so 4% higher than last season, but not the 40% he shot in 2019-20 or 2020-2021. And then 87% from the line. I think that's a safe bet right there. And then as far as the points, rebounds, assists, I'm going 23.8 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, and 4.8 assists per game. I didn't get into steals and blocks, but let's give him 1.8 steals because he's got such great hands, good in the passing lanes. But 24, 7, and 5. I think that's a great stat line. Easy all-star right there. That would be less points than he averaged last season, more points than he averaged in 2020 and 2021. And then rebounds around the same, a little bit higher. Yeah, a little bit higher than last season. Last season he averaged 6.9. I'm giving him 7.1 just because I think that we're going to play more small ball, which will force him to play as one of the bigger players in a lot of lineups. And then assists, I dropped him a little bit because I think John Wall will take the ball out of his hands a bit. And of course, Kawhi Leonard's going to take the ball out of his hands a bit. So I have him at 4.8 assists, which would still be the third highest leading assist season of his career after the 2021 and 22 with Ty Lue. So those are my projections for Paul George. To close out the show, though, I'm going to be giving my grades on them as Clippers. Just be ready, and I hope you guys aren't too harsh on me. Coming right up. The LA Clippers are currently plus 750 to win the 2023 NBA title. Those are the fourth highest odds of any team to win the title this year. And to place your bet, go to betonline.net. It's the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Go place your bets on the Clippers to win that 2023 title right now. Find reviews and news of every league, including the MLB, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. BetOnline, where the game starts. Make sure to place those bets for the Clippers to win that 2023 title and more. All right, time to close it out, and I'm about to give my grades for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard's tenure as Clippers so far. Now, let's not sugarcoat it, Clipper Nation. The Clippers brought in Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to win a championship, nothing less. Not to break the second round curse. That's what I said was the bare minimum for me as a fan to love them. And they did that, mainly Paul George. But the goal is to win a championship. And when Kawhi Leonard first came to the Clippers, coming off that championship in Toronto, right in the middle of his prime, and Paul George coming off an MVP caliber season where he finished third in MVP voting, you'd figure the Clippers would have probably won a championship by now the first 3 years in. They haven't. So you can argue it's been a failure so far. You can argue that. I don't think so because the Clippers did make it past the second round for the first time, which was huge. But overall, injuries included. So this is not just performance on the court. I'm going to give Kawhi a B-. Why is that? Well, let's take a look at it. Regular season does not mean much to me. It doesn't. I'm not saying it's not important, but it does not mean much to me as a fan. If the Clippers do amazing in the regular season and then choke and disappoint in the playoffs, it does not matter. It is a disappointment in the end. That's just how it goes. So Kawhi is going to get a B- from me for this reason. First of all, he's coming in with the quad tendinopathy thing and had to be load managed, and that's fine. And I've heard from people like closer to the situation that he's really got messed up knees. Like, he has got a lot of wear and tear on those legs. And so they have to be managed. And you see it, too. In 2021, when they said he's not load managing anymore, and the Clippers tried a couple back-to-backs, you could see as the games on the second half of those back-to-backs went on, he didn't have his legs in him. His shots were all short. And it's something that I've noticed with having Kawhi on my team. His shots are almost never long. They're always short if he misses. And he's got that line drive shot, A for that regular season. And then in the playoffs, he was great. And then Game 7 and the second half of Game 6, he totally blew it. And so as of that season, if I'm being harsh, that season I'd give him like a C. Because even though it was as great as he was in the regular season, those 2 games, everyone says that's only one game. It cost us the season. I know he should have had, there's Glenn Rivers not managing the team well. There's Paul George that played totally under his standard. But Kawhi Leonard as the best player, you expected a lot more. I expected a lot more, and he didn't come through that first season. So that's how I felt about that. And then the next season, he was awesome in the regular season. Except for there were a couple of games where he didn't close them out very well. We had conversations about that at the time where his closing seemed like he would, as I said just now, his legs would kind of go on him. But I feel like we did a better job as the season went on of getting the bench guys, the Kennards, the Terrence Manns more involved. And Reggie Jackson stepped up so much that it kind of took a little bit of load off of him. And you saw him play a little bit better as the season went on. And, of course, in the playoffs, we saw him just go nuts against the Dallas Mavericks. So because of that Dallas Mavericks series where the Clippers, were this close to the ultimate embarrassment of coming off that 3-1 after all the talk about we're more serious this season, this is going to be different, Ty Lue is here, to lose in the first round, to go a step back against the team you just beat, would have been the biggest embarrassment of them all. There would have been talks of breaking up the team. And for Kawhi Leonard to perform like that on the road against all the adversity, with all the pressure on him, one of the biggest games in Clipper history, if not the biggest at the time, was insane. And that won us the series. In Game 7, he was amazing as well. And he was playing really well. He didn't have a very good first 2 games in Utah, but the next 2 games at home, he was fantastic. So because of that, and because that put us in the position to make it out of the second round, I give Kawhi I'd give him an A for last season. And then he didn't play this past season, the whole season. So out of 3 seasons, he's played only 2. So that's what makes me give him a B-. Because of availability, that matters. And I'm a little bit nervous about him going into this upcoming season, hoping his health is good. Is that too harsh of a grade, Clipper Nation? When he's on the court, I give him an A-. I've given him an A-. He's great. The only reason it's not an A is because of the bubble. But I give him an A- for just his performance on the court. But because everything considered, I give him a B- so far. It's been that kind of ride. Paul George, on the other hand, I was really disappointed in him in Season 1. He just wasn't healthy, had a lot of mental things going on. And then Ty Lue really changed him in terms of giving him his confidence back. He actually did something I didn't expect. He put the ball back in his hands more. I thought the ball should be in his hands less for a little bit. I thought he over-dribbled that first season at times. But I think he was just trying so hard to find his footing with the team because he didn't have enough games. I think starting out the season in Game 1 in the 2020-21 season with Ty Lue put the ball in his hands more as more of a point forward. And as you saw, his assist numbers have gone up in both seasons with Ty Lue, and his confidence has gone another level. His ability to, without Kawhi Leonard, in Game 5 in Utah, play like that, 30-plus points. I think it was like 38 points, and then do the same, have an amazing leadership performance in Game 6, the curse breaker game, the night Clipper fans will never forget, was just beyond my wildest expectations. I never expected Paul George to be the one that led us across the finish line. Not Chris Paul, not Blake Griffin, not Kawhi Leonard. It was Paul George with no other co-star. So, and because of this past season, where even though he was injured, he really tried so hard, and as I said earlier, got to kind of bond with those Clipper fans. It gave me an opportunity to see him play live like 10, 15 times. So for me, considering what I expected out of Paul George, I give him a B+, because of the injuries in 2020 and 2022. Other than that, if he were able to stay healthy last season, I would probably give him an A-. Because remember, this is just relative to expectations. Kawhi is still the best player on the Clippers and is going to be the most important piece for the Clippers in this title run. I guarantee it. As I said, it all starts from the top. If you don't have that number one guy that can lead you to a championship, then your team is already not a championship team to me. And Kawhi Leonard, we've already seen him do it. So that's why we know he's that guy. And that's why we have such high expectations for him that make me give him a B-. But what do you think of my grade at Paul George? B+. Was it fair? Was it a little harsh? Was it too generous? Let me know in the comments. First, you got to let me know who's had the better tenure as a Clipper, Kawhi or Paul George. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I know you guys may have some pushback on it. Look, I'm going to be hard on the stars all year. It's Kawhi and Paul George that we rely on. They're getting paid the big bucks, and they are the ones that I expect to make big-time plays. I think our supporting cast, or the Clippers supporting cast, is fantastic. I think they're going to be great. But you know what else is going to be great? Locked On Clippers every single day. Make sure you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to find me, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, even TikTok if you're on there. Shoot your boy a follow, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel for even more Clipper content and NBA content and LA sports content. Dime Dropper Podcast on YouTube. Yesterday I reacted to Kevin Durant's staying in Brooklyn. And yeah, I guess that's all we've got for today. Make sure you comment on the YouTube video, and make sure you keep giving me feedback. I want to continue to improve. On the next episode, I'm gonna be talking about who the third option will be for the Clippers. Is there a third option? Is there a clear-cut third guy, or will it vary on a given night? And go in depth about a couple more players I have not yet to decide. But I'm going to start out with who I think has the best chance to be the third leading scorer and I wouldn't say a true third option, but the closest thing to one. Have a great day, everyone, and go Clippers.